how's it going? I'm IlaGolden and welcome to my vlog. So, on today's vlog, we're going to be talking magic. About time, right? Well, I think it's about time. My opinion matters. So, I think I've sort of vaguely mentioned the idea of the 10 orders of power, and I've also used the word elementals. So the 10 orders of power refer to the 10 recognised strains of magic that exist, and the elementals refer to specifically 8 of those recognised orders of power. The reason for this being that Opeo and Rima are basically considered the true orders of power, and the other 8 are considered to be elements of those 2. So if those 2 didn't exist, you wouldn't have the other 8. And the 8 are basically seen as being gradients in between the 2, even though the 2 really aren't that different, but are at the same time. So, as I said, when I say the 10 orders of power, I'm referring to all 10 recognised powers. And when I'm talking about the elementals, I'm specifically referring to the 8 that are believed to sort of be variations or gradients within the 2 primary orders. And I know that seems like a weird sort of distinction, but I think it sort of comes from the sort of religious aspect that sort of filters around the powers, because the main religion that gets referred to a lot within the multiverse is the 10th order, and that's very heavily referring to the 10 orders of power, the 10 orders of the multiverse, which are heavily associated with each order of power coming into being. But at the same time, we've got the 2 true powers and the 8 elements of those powers. I think that's a good explanation for it. That is what I should have gone with the first time. So the 10 orders are Opeo, Rima, Elta, Flera, Reina, Way, Gera, Anna, Slee, and Strek. And obviously I've already said that Opeo and Rima are the 2 that are considered the original powers, the true powers, which leaves the other 8 as the elementals. And each power is very heavily associated with a particular colour. So you've got Opeo, which is heavily associated with white, which I know technically isn't a colour, it's all colour or the absence of, no, I think black is the absence of colour and white is all colour. Anyway, so you've got Opeo, which is heavily associated with white. You've got Rima, which is heavily associated with a blackish purple. Then you've got Elsa, which is heavily associated with yellow. Flera, which is heavily associated with red. Reina, which is heavily associated with a very light shade of pink. But when I get into it a bit more in a minute, it is sort of associated with more colours than that, sort of a gradient of colours. But if any, within sort of lore, it's a light shade of pink. It's a pink. It's associated with pink. Then you've got Way, which is sort of a turquoise, so it's sort of a sea green turquoise. You've got Gera, which is a dark green. You've got Anna, which is a light pale blue. Slee, which is black, and then you've got Strek, which is purple. And I believe I've covered, I can't think of any that I've missed. If I've missed one, I do apologise. It does have a colour, I've just forgotten to mention it. So the reason it's sort of, you have these colour associations with these is because in their pure, rawest form, that's the colour that they appear to be. So let's delve a little bit more into each power, and some I'm going to have a lot to say about, and some I'm not going to have very much to say about at all. And it's literally the ones that I've got a lot to say about are the ones I probably use effectively in stories, whereas the ones I don't have quite as much to say about, I probably haven't gotten around to using effectively in a story yet, so I haven't had the opportunity to explore its full potential yet, and it's something that I need to get on to. So we'll start with Opeo. Now Opeo translates into light, and within the context of the multiverse there is this belief that everything begins and ends with light. So Opeo, as a set of abilities and a set of powers, is very heavily associated with creation, it's very heavily associated with the bringing of life, with healing, with that sort of vein of things. But at the same time, because it is seen as both the beginning and the end of everything, there is a destructive nature to it. It can be used as a destructive force in the same way that it can be used as a creative force. It's not just a pure good power. That's not how it works, that's not how it functions. It is almost sort of a neutral ability and a neutral sort of power, because it has the capacity for being so creative and so destructive at the same time. Most of the characters that I write about who have the ability to use Opeo tend to be high beings, gods, god-class beings, so more powerful creatures. It's not exclusive to that set, but I've not had the opportunity to really explore mortal characters with the Opeo abilities, or at least mortal characters that would have been born with the Opeo abilities. Partly because I just haven't had the opportunity to explore it yet, and partly because the way I like to see Opeo being used makes a lot more sense when you're using it with more powerful beings, and I'm not sure what a mortal capable of using Opeo would really be able to achieve in the same sort of vein and in the same sort of way. Not saying that it wouldn't be interesting to find out, just saying that it's not something I've really given much thought to yet. So after that you've got Rima, which is the other one, which is considered to be the true power, and it is just as capable of creation and destruction as Opeo is. It means dark, in case you're wondering. Light and dark, who'd have thought? So it is just as capable of creation and destruction as Opeo is, and just because you can use Rima doesn't mean that you're evil, although it does have that association to it as well. And again, a lot of the ones capable of using Rima tend to be sort of your god classes, but there's also a very, very dominant subset of mortals who can use Rima as well, and it's from them that you get the real interest in what Rima is and what Rima can do. Because the standing, and this is one of the ones I sort of mentioned briefly in the Breeds blog, you have the standing, who they aren't all born magic users, but the ones who are born magic users are Rima users, and they exclusively use Rima. And it's something that's inherited from the father's side of the family, so even if you're a female who's a Rima user, you cannot pass that ability on to your children unless your partner is also a Rima user. So that's how rare the trait is amongst the standing, although it's not as rare as it could be. There are still a lot of Rima users within, but then the standing is so prevalent within the multiverse anyway, there are going to be a lot of Rima users when you really get down to it. And it's the standing who came up with and perfected the idea of Rima weapons and Rima technology, partly as a way of enhancing their own abilities and their own capabilities, and partly because Rima is the only one of the orders of power that can self-generate. by which I mean if it is used and put into a weapon or into a piece of technology, it will remain at that same strength. It won't deplete. It will constantly keep itself at that level, whereas all the other powers, even Opeo, will slowly deplete, which means Rima tech and Rima weapons can be used by anybody, whereas any tech designed to be used with a particular elemental or a particular order of power other than Rima, you need somebody who's capable of that, either using the weapon or nearby, to keep that weapon constantly generated, constantly, refilled and resupplied with energy. But Rima just has this way of, constantly renewing itself and constantly regenerating itself, which is completely exclusive to Rima's nobility, and it's what sets it apart from Opeo, because although it has a lot in common with Opeo, and although it has a lot of similarities with how Opeo can be used, it's the only power that has this self-regeneration ability to it, and makes it the most interesting when trying to use it, because you do have the mortar characters who can use it, or the mortar characters who can use the weapons and the tech, who don't necessarily have powers of their own, and I like using Rima. The dark power is the best power. I don't know if I really think that or not, but I think sometimes that's how it comes across. So then you've got Elta, which the original translation from the Etin for that would be lightning, but obviously the modern translation is electricity. And anything you think could be done with somebody who has electrical abilities, apart from like the self-generation, apart from being able to self-regenerate when in technology, because that's exclusive to Rima, anything that you can think could be done with electric powers, that's pretty much. But then again, I've not really had much of an opportunity to sort of use and explore it, so that I need to get on that. Then you've got Flera, which translates into fire, and in Echo, I do have a couple of Flera users, one who you don't really see use her powers at all, and the other who's the way she uses her powers and the way she expresses herself, it's very interesting, because it's like her powers are an extension of her emotions, almost literally an extension of her emotions. But she is a character, she very much wears her emotions, I wouldn't even say on her sleeve, it's literally the entire body. She wears her emotions on her entire body. So that was quite fun, writing her little moments, and if you want more details of that, then you're actually gonna have to go and read Echo. Subtle all the time. But again, Flera is, for the most part, pretty much how you'd think it'd be used, and what it would what it would entail. So after that you've got Reina, and Reina's direct translation is raw power, but its modern interpretation is aura. So this one is a little bit more interesting. Even before I'd seen Naruto and knew like a lot of that sort of philosophy about things, I knew that it was an ability that basically enhanced and emphasized and supported your own natural abilities. So a lot of the Reina users were people who trained in martial arts, were people who had that sort of physical control, and it was aiding their physical control. So it's very much that sort of chakra idea is, very heavily, I now very heavily associate with Reina, but Reina also has, because it is aura based, there are certain things that you can do where you're literally controlling your aura in order to do certain things, whether it's create a shield around you, whether it's to create literal blades with your aura, so it can be used both offensively and defensively. But the main thing with Rayna is that you're using that raw energy of your aura, if you like, to generate and power and enhance your own body first, and then anything else you're doing with it is secondary, because that takes a lot longer to learn, a lot longer to master. So the focus is more on mastering your own body and your own strength than it is on creating all these fancy things that you could potentially do with it. Rayna is necessary, however, if you want to create energy balls, because although within all the different orders of power you can sort of, create a ball of your own energy in order to throw at somebody, or a ball of your own power to actually throw at somebody, it's just your power in a ball rather than an energy ball, because the Rayna factor does change the structure of the energy ball itself, and makes it a lot stronger. It gives it a higher impact, it makes it more stable, because that's the thing with the normal ball of energy that you might create, is it has no stability of its own, certainly once it's left you, whereas the Rayna gives it that stability, so makes it more effective as an offensive weapon once it's left your body. So if you can use Rayna along with another ability, it's the most effective way of using Rayna. It's a supportive kind of power, very much. And I've had a lot of fun when I've used it in combination with other things. So it's definitely one that can be used like that. I don't know how else to sort of go about that. So after Rayna, you have Wei, which is water, and then Gera, which is earth, and both of those, pretty much as you'd think they'd be used. There are certain sort of unique little bits and pieces that I might throw in here and there, but it's not necessarily completely out of how you would think those abilities would be used. And partly, again, those are ones that I do need to explore a little bit more. I mean, I know with Gera, certainly, I've had characters sort of manipulate the earth in order to do certain moves and certain protective things or certain offensive things, or connecting themselves to the earth in order to find where they are or where they need to go or where somebody else might be, and likewise they might have done the same with the water, but I've not really explored the full capacity of what those powers could potentially do. I need to get on that. Ana, again, pretty much the same. Ana means air. So if you're looking for sort of your more levitating type of abilities, so self-levitating type of abilities, or I guess weather might come in a little bit with that one. Not like creating storms necessarily, but you might get a little bit of a weather factor in with Ana, I guess. But again, that probably would be in combination with one or two of the other abilities. I really haven't explored Ana at all. I mean, I say I haven't really explored certain ones before, but I think Ana I've probably done the least with. Just because I've had the least opportunity to do anything with it. So yeah, I think my list of things is growing. Notes to self. So after Ana you have Slee, and Slee is interesting from a lore perspective, because although Rima means dark, and therefore you'd associate with the one being the evil power, actually that only goes to Slee, and it goes to Slee, and this again comes into the lore side of things, and when I go into 10th Order a little bit more, will make a lot more sense. But basically the god of the dead, who's also the god of evil, is a Slee user, so the association with Slee being a dark power purely comes from him, even though most Slee users are not necessarily evil people whatsoever. I do like saying Slee rather than saying ice. I think Slee has a nice ring to it. It sounds a lot nicer than saying ice powers. Slee. Slee. So after Slee, you have the baby of the baby of the bunch, the baby power of the bunch, which is Strek, and Strek translates into psychic or kinetic or telekinetic. I guess it mostly translates into psychic, although psychic is a weird modern word for it to translate into. But it's what you would normally associate with psychic abilities, so your telekinesis, your telepathy, your there is another one, isn't there? I guess it's probably where your channeling and your spirit channeling kind of abilities would very much come into it. Your empathy and stuff like that. I mean, Strek as an ability is very heavily associated with relationships. And again, this is law side of things and the 10th order side of things. I'll get into it a bit more. But Strek is the only one of the orders of power that is associated with an emotion, and the emotion is love. And it's not because love is the way of controlling it, no. It's all to do with how Strek became recognised as power, but again, that stuff is 10th order stuff rather than 10 orders power stuff, so I will get into that when I get into the 10th order, which may have to stretch over more than one vlog in order to do it justice. just because there's so much I can say, certainly about certain parts of it. That's a brief overview of what the 10 orders of power are. I have a lot of fun when I have users who can use more than one ability, or users who have sort of like the combined singular or the corrupted singulars, because that can be quite fun to sort of kind of go, well, this is what these two powers should have done, and this is what they've sort of become. It's interesting knowing what the powers are, and knowing which group of things goes in with which type of power, and then you can sort of decide which characters have what and what characters can do what based on what elementals or orders of power that they can use. One of the things with writing fantasy is that you actually need more rules rather than less rules in order to make it work well. And having okay, these are the powers that are my multiverse's powers. This is the key to my multiverse and the magic in my multiverse. Therefore, everybody must fall in line with the rules I've set up for using these powers. And I know it might sound weird when I sort of like say, well, Althea is like, creation and everything else, and Rima is, very similar in that sort of strain. You might say, well, those powers don't seem to have limits to them, but they do. They're just a different type of limit to them, and it's a different way of sort of looking at how you limit somebody who has the power of creation and destruction. Okay, so I have made a decision about what the next vlog will be, and I think it's time to delve into Silconius Mechanicalians, quite frankly. Partly because I do like talking about their food. I think if I was going to be any breed within my multiverse, I would want to be Silconian, definitely. So I think if I'm going to start talking about individual breeds or whatever, then I think I should start with the ones that I favour the most. It's a good way of making a decision, right? So hopefully you found this one interesting. I've certainly found it more enjoyable talking about than the last with my maths vlog was. I hope that showed a little bit, maybe. Either way, I will see you again next time. Bye!